2. May, 65. Dearest Suzie, how are you and the boys getting along? I hope that you all are getting along okay and enjoying your good long vacation from the old man. I'm anxiously awaiting that picture of Brett, and I still want one of you too. We worked today. Well, we didn't really work. We went out and flew in circles covering some Navy planes on a bombing run. It was quite a sight to see those jets dropping their 500-pound bombs all over the place. Jim Church called me tonight, and I talked to him for a while. He and his family are fine. I also talked to Bill Knoll for a few minutes. He told me that Sam Parker was supposed to come with them, but he was taken off orders at last minute because of his teeth, but he will be over later. They are all going to shift them all around within the next couple of weeks, just like they did with us when we came over, so some of them might get up to Vin Long. I suppose you've heard by now that we don't have to pay taxes anymore, and we will get back all the money that we have paid since we got over here. That adds up to quite a bit. I haven't been into town since payday. I'm going to try and get in tomorrow night. There's nothing nice in our PX, so if you don't get a Mother's Day present by Mother's Day, don't worry. I will have you something on the way. Well, I know you wouldn't worry about it, but at least now you know that I haven't forgotten and I am thinking of you. I still haven't heard from Minnie. How is she getting along now? I haven't seen Sandy yet either. Kiss the boys for me and tell them that I miss them. And you take care of yourself, and just remember that I love you and miss you very much. I think of you all constantly. All my love. Bill. P.S. I'm throwing in some slides of Charlie. Thought the boys might enjoy them. Bill. In today's letter, Popi doesn't talk about combat or chaos. He doesn't talk about trauma or grief. He talks about circles. Specifically, flying in them. On May 2nd, he flew cover for a Navy bombing run. He describes it with quiet awe, flying in lazy loops while jets dropped 500-pound bombs all over the place. Quite a sight, he calls it. I imagine the sound of the explosions, the sharp contrast between his hovering Huey and the thunder of jets streaking overhead, fire and smoke below. And that simple description opens the door to something larger. The complicated relationship between the different branches of the U.S. military during the Vietnam War. Popi, an Army pilot, would have been flying low and slow, providing overwatch and support while faster, more heavily armed Navy aircraft carried out precision bombing. At that point in 1965, the Navy had several aircraft capable of dropping 500-pound bombs. The A-1 Sky Raider was one of the most widely used. It was old-fashioned by jet age standards, propeller-driven, single-seater, but incredibly reliable. It could loiter over a target longer than any jet, making it perfect for close air support. Then there was the A-3 Sky Warrior, a much heavier attack aircraft, and the A-6 Intruder, a sleek, all-weather bomber built for low-level night attacks. Any of these could have been part of the mission Popi was covering that day. But what's interesting to me here isn't just the firepower, it's the collaboration. Hueys from the Army flying beneath Navy jets, coordinated fire support in a war that demanded it but didn't always deliver. Because while all branches of the military were technically on the same side, the Vietnam War laid bare just how difficult it was to fight a joint war. Each branch had its own goals, its own command structure, its own strategic playbook. The Army prioritized mobility and control of the countryside. The Navy focused on offshore bombardment and aviation support. The Air Force wanted to win the war from the sky. And the Marines, often functioning as their own hybrid force, tended to do whatever was required, wherever they were needed. In theory, they worked together. In practice, they often competed over equipment, mission control, and tactical vision. For soldiers and pilots like Popi, it meant living inside a constantly shifting, sometimes confusing battlefield where the rules weren't always clear, and your closest support might belong to a different chain of command entirely. And yet, there he was, flying in circles, doing his part, watching jets do theirs. No drama, no fanfare, just a quiet account of a mission where nothing went wrong. Meanwhile, just 3 days before, he was asking armored personnel carriers to help him find a dead soldier. The rest of the letter is typical. Popi mentions friends like Jim Church and Bill Knoll, questions Suzie's relatives, and makes a quick financial note about taxes being refunded. He also makes a reminder that he hasn't forgotten Mother's Day. And at the very end, he provides a small gift. A few slides of Charlie, tossed in with the letter for the boys to enjoy. But the brief moment with the Navy jets lingers around because it reminds us that Popi's experience wasn't isolated. It was deeply entangled with the broader machinery of war, machinery that spanned oceans and branches, strategies and egos, personalities and policies. He might have only seen one piece of it, but he helped make the whole thing move. The photo I chose for today shows a few islands in the ocean from the air. Though Popi doesn't say where he was supporting the jets, perhaps it was on the coast. It was with the Navy, after all. Dearest Suzie, I got 3 letters from you today, and the pictures of Billy and Brian. I was glad to get them, but I wish some of Brett had turned out. Send me some of him and yourself as soon as you can. I was especially glad to hear that you all got over to the beach for a while. I hope you can make it often. I sure wish I could be there with you, but there is no sense in crying over that. I've got 4.5 months, no matter how you figure it. Tickled to death that the boys weren't afraid of the water. I went into town tonight to look for something for you, but I couldn't find anything that I could just walk in and buy that I liked. Anything worth having over here has to be specially made, so I'm going to give up on trying to find anything now, but I am sending you something. I think you will like it. I got Mom a present too, but I have to pick it up tomorrow night. She should get it within 2 days after you get yours. When she gets it, I want you to see it and let me know what you think of it and how she likes it. I still want the boys' sizes, and I won't be sending Billy a present. I just can't find anything over here nice enough for little boys, and since you got him a watch, I don't try to send anything. But tell him for me that I was thinking of him. I'm going to close for now. I have an early takeoff tomorrow. I love you and miss you all very much. All my love, Bill. Today I would like to present the first part of a piece I wrote. I won't give much context. I hope you can figure it all out together on your own. I'll provide pieces across this month, when there are days which have less to talk about, and as with most everything else in this project, this is deeply personal and meaningful to me. I hope you enjoy. It was a sleepy late November evening, and I had been invited to a birthday dinner at one of the nicest restaurants in town. It was a part of a popular regional chain of high-end restaurants that was built prioritizing a close proximity to the nicest neighborhoods north of Orlando, ones that oftentimes boasted residency of Magic basketball players, former Hollywood celebrities, and ambulance-chasing lawyers who plastered their faces on billboards dotting the East Coast. It was Mary's 81st birthday, and she wanted to celebrate with friends and family. I had become close to Mary, her daughter Lisa, and her son-in-law Tim. Tim and Lisa have 2 children about my age who moved away years ago, and Mary was staying with them for the winter to escape the cold in the north. She splits time between her kids and was admittedly happy to spend her birthday, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's in Florida. She is a funny woman, with the kind of wise perspective that a second-generation American can have, who was raised in New Jersey and lived most of her life in the South, with a husband in the military and 4 kids. She liked me and wanted me around. Her daughter and son-in-law are blue-collar. Neither have college degrees. Tim owns a small but generally prosperous construction business, and Lisa raised her kids until they were old enough to drive and then found some corporate position in HR. They had both went to high school in Orlando and never left, moving to the suburbs in Sanford to raise their kids. It was safer and not as expensive. They liked the area for the most part, but always dreamed of moving closer to the coast. Tim was able to afford the meal at the nice restaurant for the family because he had traded work on the building's facade for gift cards, an arrangement he often made so they could enjoy the finer things life had to offer. I knew Tim and Lisa's kids growing up and reconnected with the family in downtown Sanford once at a street fair. They reminded me of my parents. I sat next to Mary at the dinner, doing my best to act like the price tag of the salad and fish I ordered weren't a bit out of my price range. They and their friends spoke generally about their lives and how work had been going. Eventually, Mary turned to me and said, "Alex, you know I really like your writing, right?" The compliment certainly took me by surprise. I had shown the 3 of them some of my work so they could be familiar with the type of research I do and see how I might one day write about them if they let me spend time with some of them. "Well, yes, thank you, Miss Mary. I really appreciate that." She smiled and nodded. "I have something I want you to do for me," she began, which, admittedly, confused me. I really had no idea what she could want. "Sure, it's your birthday after all," I smiled. "I want you to write to Dr. Phil about Jessica's kids. I can't write the way you do, and I want him to listen to the story. You can tell it well." My heart sank. She was talking about her granddaughter, the oldest of 10 grandkids and daughter of Lisa's older brother. From what I had been told, Jessica had quite a troubled past. Her mother and father were both abusive, divorced when she was young, and neglected to get her treatment for her diagnosed bipolar disorder and schizophrenia. She barely finished high school and immediately had a run-in with hard drugs in one of those sad, run-down towns south of Orlando, but close to Disney. She had what seemed to be a loving extended family, but years of abusing meth and prescription painkillers that weren't prescribed to her made her paranoid and untrusting of just about everyone. Her father, Benjamin, had recently died homeless from cancer caused by decades of smoking, and she apparently had some unresolved issues with him. He had spent his life working at different gas stations, doing the bare minimum and stealing scratch-offs long enough until he got fired. He had 3 different ex-wives and years of child support payments that he would never get the chance to pay off. He also struggled with his mental health. Mary once expressed that she was afraid he had so much trouble in his life due to the way she and her husband raised him. His dad was mean sometimes, but never hit him like he hit the other kids. Benny was so smart growing up and was supposed to go to college. When he turned 18, we did everything we could for him, but he said we smothered him, and he went haywire. Lisa has expressed to me before that her dad was an alcoholic and had no problem hitting his kids to discipline them. Jessica had spent the past 20 years in and out of jail and almost had a total breakdown when her brother committed suicide almost 15 years ago. That kid always had demons, Tim said to me one day. He used to do all kinds of shit. One day he called me from the Ocala National Forest asking me to pick him up. He had come off a many days-long acid trip and needed a way to get back home. He actually expected me to drop what I was doing at work and drive the 2 hours one way to get him. I told him he had to stop doing that stuff and find a way back home himself. He never really got straight, though. Eventually, he beat the shit out of some girl down south so bad that she had to get airlifted to the hospital. I think she still has permanent brain damage now or something like that from it, which is crazy because he wasn't even that big. We thought at first it was just a drug overdose that killed him, but now we think it was a suicide. Probably to get away from facing up to those charges he had in front of him. Jessica and her brother were close, and she took his death pretty hard, insisting, even still, that her brother did nothing wrong and the girl he hurt was beaten up by someone else. If you like that, please stay tuned this month for the next few parts of Fish, Pharmaceuticals, and Phil. The photo I chose for today depicts 3 women in a market somewhere. One is holding a scale and appears to be weighing out some kind of nut. Perhaps this was Vin Long. In the right corner, it says Hui. So, perhaps it isn't. May 5, 1965. Dearest Suzie, the rainy season is on us over here. It is raining like mad right now. At least we won't have to put up with so much dust now. Today is very quiet. We went to the range this morning, and right after one trip, we have been off. I got yours and Mom's present in the mail today. I hope you like it. I sent both presents to you so you can take Mom's over to her. Oh, about that Hong Kong trip, I doubt if I will go. I really don't want to and don't want to spend all that money. I picked up my suit yesterday. It is blue Italian silk. I think that you will like it. I guess this was all my month because besides the suit and 2 shirts, I bought myself a camera. It is completely automatic and the slides are the size of the ones I sent you the other day, which means that I get twice as many pictures on a roll of film. But it has a built-in light meter and lets in just enough light to take a picture. And if there isn't enough light, then you can't take the picture. I guess Billy is looking forward to the end of the school by now, isn't he? When is the school year over anyway? I was glad to hear that Brian hasn't forgotten his daddy. I sure miss all my boys. How's everything around the house? Is that worthless TV of ours still working? What about the washer and the car? I love you very much and miss you very much. All my love. Bill. This letter may be one of the most exciting ones to me, specifically because it mentions his camera and he gives a few details about it. As I've stated before, this whole project started with photos. They were the first things I had. His photos are the oldest connection I have to his service, his life before he became who I knew him as. They were, at first, scarce, well curated by Popi, and fragile, material things. It has only been through asking questions, tracking down mildewed boxes, and spending the time organizing and digitizing his materials that I've been able to get to where I am today. From his photos came the letters, which may actually grow in number soon, as well as all the souvenirs which I've been given by Meemaw since the start of this work. One thing that was always missing for me, though, was his camera. I knew he was taking photos, I just didn't know with what. I asked Meemaw about that a few years ago, and in response, she gave me a point-and-shoot early digital camera that Popi owned. "Is that right?" she asked, handing it to me. "Could that be the one he used in Vietnam?" I smiled and politely responded by saying, probably not, but thanks. I needed a film camera. I needed something old. Hopefully it wasn't corroded or damaged. I wanted to hold the same camera he held to see the world through the same lens he saw it through. I wanted to take photographs on film, exposing crystals to light like he did, getting the images developed as slides and projecting them on the wall using the low light and high heat of an old bulb. I could never go to Vietnam as an American soldier and fight in the war. I could never be a part of my family in the 60s. But I could take a photograph. Needless to say, he didn't hang on to his camera from Vietnam. Not only that, I had almost no way of knowing what he would have used. Eventually, one day looking through a box of old photos with Meemaw, I found a print of Popi, holding a camera and pointing it at the photographer. Wait, I thought to myself, this is the only example I have of him holding a camera. This has to be it. It was from Vietnam. Unfortunately, the photo was grainy and low resolution by today's standards. I had more of an impression of a camera, shapes and gradations of gray. No logos or words to tell me what it was. Immediately when I got home, I began scouring the internet looking for the camera, or at least a clue that could help me find it. After months of searching, I had very little to go off. I tried finding old PX listings for cameras, looked at things made in 1965, even found a list of old standard issue film cameras for pilots. Nothing got me closer to figuring out what he was holding in the photo. Eventually, my girlfriend suggested I do something which I thought was stupid and would come up with not real results. Ask ChatGPT. It couldn't look at the photo, but I could at least describe what I saw to the AI and pray that the algorithm could help me. Ultimately, I spent about a few hours going back and forth, refining my description and searching for the cameras online it suggested without getting anywhere. Eventually, however, it suggested looking at a brand called a Petri. None of the models it suggested on Google, however, were correct. It was a real bummer. Getting ready to give up, and at this point, pretty tired of the whole process, I lazily scrolled through suggested photos, planning on what I'd do next, and suddenly I found it. Someone had posted to Reddit a photo of their, quote, old camera collection. Among their cameras was a Petri 7S. It was the same camera Popi was holding in the photo. I found it. Thanks, ChatGPT. The Petri 7S is a 35mm rangefinder camera introduced in the early 1960s by the Japanese company Petri. The camera was known for its affordability and distinctive features. It was designed to offer a straightforward photography experience, making it accessible to both beginners and enthusiasts. Or people busy flying helicopters who still wanted to take pictures from the air, possibly while getting shot at. The camera came with a fixed 45mm lens, coated with a special film to enhance image quality, particularly in color photography. It was equipped with the Petri MVE leaf shutter, offering speeds ranging from 1 second to 1/500th of a second. Popi describes its circle eye system, which utilizes a selenium cell light meter surrounding the lens, eliminating the need for batteries. These almost look like LEDs and are used to determine how bright a shot is. This system provides a match needle display, visible both on the top plate and within the viewfinder for easy exposure adjustments. It featured the Green-O-Matic system, which uses a green-tinted rangefinder patch to aid focusing. The viewfinder includes bright frame lines and parallax correction marks, enhancing composition accuracy. This essentially means that when you look through the viewfinder, it creates a double image. When you find the thing you want to focus on with your eye, you use the focus on the lens to correct the double image to a single one. Most controls for the 7S, including the focus, aperture, shutter speed, and film speed settings, are located on the lens barrel. This design allows for intuitive adjustments while shooting. It also has an analog timer, which feels very clever and ahead of its time. Additionally, it had a tripod socket on the bottom. Finally, the camera included a cold shoe for mounting external flashes. The camera did not need any batteries, and any flash mechanisms would be self-contained and separate. The Petri 7S is incredibly straightforward, and its battery-free operation, coupled with features like the Circle Eye system and Greenomatic viewfinder, would have made it attractive to someone like Popi. He may have had some experience with photography, but this beginner camera would have made it easy for someone in his position to get high-quality photos while actively in a war zone. Since finding the camera, I now own two. One came with a really interesting leather case. I've tested one, and it works. I haven't yet gotten any slides made, but I will one day. Both cameras smell like cigarette smoke, like I remember Popi smelling. I've since noticed the exact same kind of camera and the same kind of case in a photo with Charlie. If I end up using it, maybe you'll also recognize it on your own one day. Though not the exact camera he used, I'm thankful to have the ones I do. They force me to think like an older photographer. Shots are limited, light must be considered, focus is not automatic. Photographs are intentional. Using the camera has taught me, in part, what it must have been like to be Popi, if even just for taking photos. For capturing memories, some painful and others saccharine sweet, that he could later share with his family. Or, even more abstractly, with you, whomever is listening today and every day. I hope you have enjoyed his eye, as well as the story of my little journey finding his camera. The photo I chose today is one I have just told you about. It is in black and white, featuring Popi and three of his friends standing in front of a body of water. The back of the photo has someone's handwriting on it, which reads, The Gang, L-R, Bill Lowy, Bud Bender, Captain Brown, Church McConnell, First Lieutenant. (7) May. Dearest Suzie, I hope you are feeling better by now. I guess that flu was what caused your headaches, huh? Did you go to the doctors to find out what was causing them? Things are beginning to move over here again. The VC are causing quite a bit of trouble in our area. We are nearing the rainy season now, and that is the time that the VC like best. They can get around better. We got called out yesterday to help an outpost that was under attack. I was busy giving a check ride, so I didn't go. The platoon was out till 8 o'clock last night and got 6 ships shot up. Nobody got hurt, though. We are just on standby today. So far, nothing has come up. It is 3:30 in the afternoon now. I'm just sitting here listening to Country Corner on AFN. Oh yes, congratulations, Graceful, on getting bleach in your eye. What did you do for an encore? How about conking your nose on the trunk of the car for an encore? Sometimes you amaze me. Well, I love you all very much. I miss you and can't wait to get home to you. Kiss the boys for me, and I will add more to the list of kisses I am keeping for you. All my love, Bill. The following is the next part of a piece I wrote titled Fish, Pharmaceuticals, and Phil. I won't give much context. I hope you can figure it out on your own. I'll continue to provide parts during this month when there are days which have less to talk about. As with everything else in this project, this is deeply personal and meaningful to me. I hope you enjoy. 13 years ago, Jessica had a kid with someone who was basically a stranger. This started a pattern, and 4 children later, she had finally dug herself into a deep hole enough that Mary, Tim, Lisa, and the rest of their family had no choice but to step in and try to help. They had been delicate with her up until this point, celebrating the births of the new family members and casually suggesting that she get her tubes tied or at the very minimum settle down with one of the fathers to her kids. It was hard for her to maintain any level of stability when she and the kids' dads were heavy drug users and frequently in and out of jail after getting caught with meth or calling the cops on each other for domestic abuse. Clearly the kids had been suffering, but they lived with her mother, Lisa's sister-in-law, Katie, their whole lives. She was described to me plainly as one crazy bitch. Unfortunately, Tim and Lisa had tried to step in years before and adopt the kids when they were first born, but allegedly, Katie testified to the local family courts that Mary, Tim, and Lisa were all abusive alcoholics. The judge believed her, so Jessica and her kids disappeared from everyone's lives, placed in Katie's care. They would disappear until Jessica had another kid and invited everyone into her life again to see the babies, acting like everything was normal. It was a long, painful, and unhealthy cycle. Things had been relatively stable until 2019 when Katie died, which was initially relief to Tim and Lisa, and the kids were placed in Jessica's care full-time. 3 kids and no job ended up being somewhat unmanageable for her, but she did have a guy she was living with who was the father of kid 3 and allegedly the father of kid 4, who she was pregnant with at the time. In February of 2020, she went into labor 3 months premature and went to downtown Orlando to give birth to a child that came out addicted to meth. She called her aunt and uncle, inviting them to see her and asking them to take her 2 oldest kids temporarily while she was in and out of the hospital. Knowing the situation, Tim and Lisa were hesitant but willing to oblige for the good of the children. Let's just say that things got messy when the lockdowns began a month later. It took Jessica many days to give birth to kid 4, and due to the circumstances of the birth, there was a long road to recovery ahead of the baby if it had any chance of survival. She by no means would be able to take care of the 2 oldest. It was out of the question. The pandemic, daily trips to see the baby, and total lack of income made it impossible for her to even consider asking for her kids back. Eventually, Tim and Lisa enrolled them in a school nearby and did their best to raise 2 kids they barely knew during a once-in-a-lifetime global pandemic. Let's just say it was tough, Lisa once told me. The biggest problem they faced with the kids was the instability of the situation. They barely had enough to get by during the lockdowns as it was, and Tim was constantly afraid that something would happen which would totally halt his company's ability to work. Thankfully, it hadn't. Also, Jessica's violent and drug-addled past made them nervous. We kept thinking that she'd come around our house one day, tweaked up and asking for her kids back, Tim told me. One day, Jessica got in a fight with her boyfriend and called the cops on him. They arrested him on site without questions. Because of the disturbance, the local county sheriff conducted a welfare check on Tim and Lisa, even though they were counties away. They didn't really like having the cops knocking on their door randomly. Things went well with the police, but it really helped encapsulate the seriousness of the situation. They knew something more long-term had to be done for their protection and for the betterment of the children. I knew them at this point, and to help, I got them in contact with a state congressperson I used to work for. It didn't seem like much and felt wrong intervening in their lives, but there were kids involved. They needed what was best. The congressperson put them in contact with a nonprofit that works directly with the Department of Children and Family, DCF, as well as Child Protective Services, CPS, cases. The children were eventually taken by a nonprofit and entered the foster system. It was painful for Tim and Lisa, but they explained their reasoning clearly to me. The kids needed more than we could provide. We could barely afford them, and though the state will give money to foster parents, they wouldn't give us anything because we were related. Plus, we were afraid for our own safety with Jessica in the picture. As long as she was around, we didn't want to be looking over our shoulders all the time, Lisa told me. Not to mention, Tim elaborated, we tried to get them years ago and the judge wouldn't give them to us. The way I see it, the state broke them, they have to fix them. Kid 1 had some anger management and developmental issues and stayed in the foster home for a night until the family kindly asked that he go somewhere else. It only took him threatening the life out of the foster father once for the family to realize the arrangement probably wouldn't work out. The caseworker took him to a group home meant for kids like him. Kid 2 stayed with that foster family, which was generally spoken about like a good thing, except for the fact that the family was black, which, Mary admitted, bothered her, explaining that it must just be her age that made her weird about it, and that they wouldn't let her read Harry Potter, her favorite book series. Their pastor said it was demonic. Well, if she's not getting abused, that's good, right? I said to the family. Yeah, basically, replied Tim. The youngest 2 were shopped around to different members of their father's family, who they stayed with for a time, until finally Kid 3 went to live with Kid 2, and Kid 4 went to a young couple who wanted a baby but couldn't conceive. Everyone says Kid 4 is the luckiest of them all. If you like that, please stay tuned this month for the next few parts of Fish Pharmaceuticals and Phil. The photo I chose for today seems to depict a road leading into a town or a settlement of some sort. The road is paved. On either side are power or communication lines. On the side of the road is a group of huts or houses which appear to be made of wood or reed. In the distance is a mountain. May 65. Dearest Suzie, I got your letter today and was glad to get the pictures of the boys. I just wish you could have sent me one of yourself. That Brian still looks like a little stinker. I gave instrument instruction all day today, as I put in a pretty good day's work. I went down to Sock Trang for lunch and had a good long talk with Church, Noel Kinlaw, and our old next-door neighbor, Scott. I spent about 2 hours with them. Then we took off and went to Vung Jan. We had a bunch of guys come with a company up there. Charlie Millard was one of them. Since it is Saturday afternoon, though, they are all gone, so I didn't see him. Have you finished paying both of those loans? If you have, they better send you the title, and I didn't think our insurance was due until the end of June. So are you still planning to go home in June? I was hoping that you would wait till I got home. I know that the best time for you to go is during June or July, where Billy is out of school, but I really did want to go with you. I won't try to stop you from going because I can't think of a single reason why you should not. I will worry about you driving that far, but that is no excuse for saying don't go, if you drive carefully. I guess the main thing that bothers me is that I wanted to be with you to show off our boys, and I guess to show off myself a little bit too. After all, a combat veteran with a chest full of medals and war stories just naturally likes to show off. But if you are bound to go in June, then you go with my blessings. Just be careful. I still haven't heard from Minnie yet, by the way, nor did I ever hear from Flo or John, even saying that they got the dolls I sent. Thanks for the boys' sizes. I don't know if I will get jackets for them or not, but I'm going to get some shirts for them. The more I see those jackets, the less I like them. I expect to get my order sometime this month. That is the only thing I have to look forward to right now. When I get them, then, I'll start looking forward to July 4th. And when that is over, I will be so short I will only have one thing to look for. Well, I guess I will close for tonight. I miss you all more and more, and I love you very much. Sincerely, Bill. In this episode of Dearest Suzie, Popi writes with home on his mind. It's May 8th, 1965, and after many long months in Vietnam, he allows himself to imagine the moment he's back with his family. In one tender paragraph of this letter, he shares a quiet wish. He hopes he'll return in time to accompany Suzie on an upcoming trip so he can show off the boys and himself. He says it almost playfully, proud of their 3 young sons, and, in his gentle way, proud of himself too for what he's endured. There's no bravado or melodrama in his words, just the honest longing of a father and husband eager to be reunited with his loved ones. You can almost picture him smiling at the thought of walking beside Suzie with their boys in tow, finally able to present all of his family together. It's a modest dream of normalcy. Popi's desire to show off his boys and himself hints at the quiet pride he carries. He's not boastful, but like many soldiers, he feels that returning home is something of an accomplishment in its own right. After all, surviving a year in a war zone is no small feat. For many returning servicemen, coming home meant putting on the dress uniform and displaying the symbols of their sacrifice. In those early years of the war, many Americans still viewed returning soldiers as heroes, and the men coming off the plane knew it. Popi's hope to show off a little is very much in line with that era, a hopeful expectation that he could step off the jet proudly, introduce his boys to friends and relatives, and share a few war stories over a home-cooked meal. There's a wholesome vanity in it, not about glory or medals for their own sake, but about presenting himself to the world as both a devoted family man and a combat service veteran who had done his duty. The uniform that set combat veterans apart in Vietnam would set them apart at home, too, in ways they weren't sure about. Would the kids recognize them after so many months away? How much had Popi's sons grown? Would he still know how to be dad rather than Officer Lowy? In the wider context of 1965, most Vietnam veterans returned individually rather than with their units, often on lone flights back to the U.S. They went from all the chaos of combat to the calm of home in a matter of days, a jarring transition. Many recall stepping off the plane to find life at home had moved on. Children were taller, new songs were on the radio, neighbors had come and gone. One study of Vietnam vets notes that upon coming home, a soldier often felt, quote, a sense of uncertainty and alienation in civilian society. It could take time to adjust to mundane routines after the intensity of war. For Popi, there may also have been the lingering weight of what he experienced in Vietnam. By May, he had lost friends in combat and seen things he could never forget. Coming home meant relief and rejoicing, but it also meant carrying those memories into a world that might not fully understand them. There's a reason he wants to quietly show himself off alongside his boys, rather than burst in with dramatic tales of heroism. His pride is tempered by everything he's seen and done. By focusing on that image of accompanying Mimo on her trip, Popi allows himself a moment of hopeful projection. It's as if he's picturing a scene in the near future. Suzie and the boys showing up proudly with him on her arm, introducing him to friends or relatives who haven't seen him since he shipped out. In that vision, he's not a soldier in a faraway war. He's a husband and a father right where he belongs, bragging about his kids, and maybe blushing a bit as Suzie brags about him. It's a humble daydream, but a powerful one. And as listeners, knowing the history, we feel the emotional resonance of that moment. We know thousands of others, young men in Vietnam, were harboring the same dream of home, counting their own days, polishing their boots for the last time in country. We also know that for some, reunions would be complicated, or even bittersweet. The photo I chose for today depicts 6 guys sitting in front of a hooch. 4 are in bathing suits and flip-flops, some with towels draped over their shoulders. They are clearly relaxing, possibly about to go for a swim or a suntan, like Popi has mentioned doing before. Perhaps these are his friends he went and got lunch with on this day? May 11, 1965. Dearest Suzie, I have received a letter from you every day this week. I think I am tickled to death. Today I also got one from your mother and B and Al. Al even took the effort to write a whole page. It was nice hearing from them. This has been a busy week for me. We had all these new people come in and they've had to get them all straightened out. Plus, I've been teaching a guy how to fly instruments in a helicopter and he passed his check ride yesterday, so I feel real good about that. We're having a party tomorrow night for some people that we have going home, so this morning I had to go to Saigon to get the meat for the party. When I got back, everybody had moved out to VietnamWar, where those 5 Americans were killed today. They won't be back until tomorrow, so I am all alone here tonight. I called Sandy while I was in Saigon, but I didn't have time to get to see him. Charlie and Doll are getting along as ever. Tell the boys that I still plan to bring them home. I love you all and miss you very much. Sincerely, Bill. The following is the next part of a piece I wrote titled Fish, Pharmaceuticals, and Phil. I won't give much context. I hope you can piece it together on your own. I'll continue to provide parts during this month when there are days which have less to talk about. As with most everything else in this project, this is deeply personal and meaningful to me. I hope you enjoy. After hearing about each individual situation of each kid, I felt like I was being baited into a sob story. Mainly by Tim's tone, which sounded sort of like when someone says, "Oh, I've got one for you," or "Get this." I allowed them to lead the conversation wherever they wanted, and eventually just plainly asked, what about their fathers? They explained that Kid 1's father was a deadbeat who lived in North Carolina now and didn't want to have anything to do with him. At least he didn't, until he found out that he could have full custody of his son without any chance of Jessica taking him back. Kid 1's father was ecstatic and agreed. Up until that point, Jessica had told the oldest 2 that they had the same dad and that he was dead. Kid 1 was told by the caseworkers that his dad was still alive and that he would, after all, get to go live with him. This changed his whole demeanor for a few days. That is until a week later when his dad got in a car accident and died for real. I can't imagine what that did to Kid 1's trust in the caseworkers or his mother. The story about Kid 2's dad was true. He was dead. He killed himself in prison after getting convicted for maybe pedophilia? As Tim and Lisa understood it, the guy had touched one of his other kids? Maybe? Kid 2 didn't know about her dad or the existence of many half-siblings. The 2 youngest kids had the same dad, and he was, to no surprise, also a deadbeat, but had a house in town where Jessica lived with her family. The 2 of them had their problems, but he did tell Tim and Lisa multiple times that he really loved Jessie. One day, when Jessica was up in Orlando with the baby, and before Kid 3 was given to the foster family, he was mowing the lawn in the hot Florida sun. He went to get a drink of water and died from a heart attack in front of Kid 3. I took the bait, and it did not disappoint. The story for every kid's father was pretty tragic. They really had no one. Their grandparents were dead. Who knows about their grandparents on the father's sides? Their fathers were dead, and it was clear that their mother would pretty much never get things together. The 4 kids were drastically in need of intervention from the state. If our social safety nets, child protective services, and departments of children and family existed for one purpose, this pretty much seemed like it. All that being said, Tim and Lisa hated the way things were going with the state. They explained the complicated arrangement between state agencies like DCF and CPS, the judicial system, and nonprofit organizations that are paid by the government to act as caseworkers and guardians ad litem for children who are in these types of situations. To my understanding, the state makes the laws and handles the legal side of things as they occur between children and their parents or families. Once a child is removed from a home, they are given to one of many nonprofit organizations across the state that employ caseworkers who put the children in contact with foster homes or group homes, which are willing and able to take the kids, sometimes temporarily and other times permanently. These organizations are responsible for overseeing the care of the children until there can be a court date set for a parent or family so they can try and get their kids back from the state. Oftentimes, I was told, the judges are lenient and hate to see mothers separated from their children, even when they are clearly bad for them. It was explained to me that, quote, Jessica is so manipulative. She'll take her meds and get clean a few days before, so she's clear-headed and looks like she's trying to improve her life. The judge pretty much always falls for it. End quote. If the kids are given back, the parents will still sometimes be given orders for classes they need to take, phrased as development plans, or they will have to pass drug tests. Due to the pandemic, Jessica got away with not completing any of her development plans. When the caseworkers would do surprise visits, she would always somehow manage to pass them, like the time they visited and checked to see if there was food in the house. There was, but it belonged to her roommate, and she lied about it to the state for things to look good. Eventually, because the group homes were not meant to be long-term, Kid 1 was given back to his mother. When he was with the group home, his grades improved, he lost some weight because he wasn't eating McDonald's 5 times a week like usual. He made friends and apparently always sounded very happy on the phone. Within 6 weeks of being given back to his mother, he had been expelled from his school, which obviously affected his grades, was picked on often by other kids in the neighborhood, and was arrested multiple times for stealing, swinging shovels at neighbors, and ultimately assaulting police officers when they attempted to scare him straight and put him in the back of a cop car. What respect did he even really have for law enforcement to begin with, though? It took the state over a year to revisit her case, and eventually she lost permanent custody of her kids, for now, only because she failed to take a hair follicle test for drugs. She claimed that she didn't really trust the lab which the state would send her to, paranoid that they would lie about the results. Kid 1 was taken to another group home, but keeps getting arrested and hasn't improved much. I was told that when his grandmother, Katie, had custody, she tried to get him classified as special needs so she would get extra money from the state to raise him. Apparently, he's always been loaded up on medication and given no discipline. When he started to get older and larger than his mom or grandma, he fell victim to Florida's often misused Baker Act, which I'm sure was created with good intentions, but ultimately allows for families to have police declare an individual a danger to themselves or to others. Upon this declaration, the people are committed to psychiatric facilities where they are given medication. I was told firsthand that there was not much psychological therapy involved, and forced to stay there for a minimum of 3 days or until they are no longer a threat to anyone, including themselves. The oldest had been Baker acted over 5 times before the age of 13, which probably was the cause for his mistrust of law enforcement, besides seeing them arrest his mom and her boyfriends often, and his erratic behavior. Whatever good intention the law was created with seemed to vanish in attempts to help children like these. Please stay tuned this month for the next few parts of Fish, Pharmaceuticals, and Phil. The photo I chose for today could be of some of the new guys coming in. They are clearly walking down the main avenue at the base with the flags. They are holding up large sacks, which could be laundry or could be all of their things. Who knows? Dearest Suzie, I received 2 letters from you today and was real ashamed of myself for not writing more often. My only defense is that we are very busy right now. For instance, today we took off at 06:30 and flew all day until 11 o'clock tonight. It is midnight now and I still have a lot of work to do before I can go to bed, and we have a takeoff at 0600 tomorrow morning. I can't remember when I have been as tired as I am tonight. It was a profitable day today, though. As we were coming home, they called us on the radio and told us that the latest count was 125 VC killed, and I am sure there are many, many more. We had one man injured. He caught a bullet in the hand, but he is doing fine. We were working out of Sok Trang today, and on one of my breaks I was having a Coke in their officers' club, and Captain Hodgson came in. I said hello and told him that you had written about his wife. He seemed real happy to meet me, and said that his wife had mentioned you and me. He is a real pleasant guy, and we got along real well. We talked for about 20 minutes. I'm glad that you like your ring, but I'm afraid that I pulled a big boo-boo. I had intended for you to give the pillowcase to Mom, since I didn't send her anything. That is why I had all our names put on it. However, I forgot to tell you that, and since you like it so much, you go ahead and keep it. You did say you gave Mom some money, didn't you? I would have gotten you one of those made up too, but I didn't really think you would like it. I was wrong once, huh? Anyway, I'm glad you like them. I was glad to hear that you got that camera. I have been worried about it. Hurry up and get some slides made and send me some. You should be getting that box that I sent by boat mail pretty soon now. That burns me up about some kid beating Brian. It is too bad he has to suffer because of someone else's brat. I hope they got a piece of your mind. Well, I will close for tonight. I didn't run out of things to write for once, but I am pooped. Try to write more tomorrow night. I love you all and miss you very much. Sincerely, Bill. The following is the next part of a piece I wrote titled Fish, Pharmaceuticals, and Phil. I won't give much context. I hope you can piece it together on your own. I'll continue to provide parts during this month when there are days which have less to talk about. As with most everything else in this project, this is deeply personal and meaningful to me. I hope you enjoy. Kid 2 had been the closest to Tim and Lisa due to her stay at their house during the pandemic. They helped her take Zoom classes, introduced her to Harry Potter, which turned her into an avid reader, and did all they could to correct the issues she faced that resulted from her upbringing. For example, she was 9 when she first went to live with them, and still wet the bed. She did so often. Tim was afraid she was a diabetic due to her poor diet, and bedwetting was a clear giveaway for him. And eventually, instead of asking for help with it, she would hide her soiled clothes, hoping that Aunt Lisa wouldn't get angry, and hit her like her mother used to. Tim and Lisa never hit her. Now, at the age of 12, she has started to face bouts of depression. Her foster father, who Tim and Lisa respect and think have been great to her, have been trying to get her psychiatric help from the state, but by the time they did, things were too little and too late. When the first counselor finally arrived to the foster home over a year after the first request, Kid 2 was asked if she ever thought about harming herself, which she said she did. The counselor immediately called the police, without the knowledge of the foster family, to Baker Act Kid 2. Due to the way the law is handled, the foster family was not allowed to intervene until the police got there. When an officer did show up, he would have the final say over whether or not Kid 2 was a danger to herself. The first responding officer is given the responsibility of this determination, and Tim told me they often don't have any special training for this type of thing. They are the same guys that give tickets for speeding. The foster father told Tim that the police officer who had her committed likely saw a little white girl with a black family, and just naturally assumed something wasn't right. Tim and Lisa believed him. At the facility, Kid 2 was given Prozac and melatonin because apparently people who have been taken to sterile facilities and loaded up with medication have a hard time sleeping, and eventually was released long past the minimum 3 days. While there, she roomed with an adult woman and got home with knotted hair, since they aren't allowed to have combs in the facility because they are made from hard plastic, which can be sharpened and used violently. She has now been Baker Acted a total of 3 times. Each trip to the facility seems to be less effective than the one before. Where was the caseworker or guardian ad litem throughout all of this, I asked. Aren't they the ones who are supposed to advocate for the kids to the police and courts? Tim laughed at me. They're nowhere to be found. When she got out of the facility the last time, they called us a bunch. It was only to say that her foster father created an unsuitable environment for her to live in and ask us if we'd take her back. When I asked if he created an unsuitable environment for Kid 3, I got no answer. They just want to place the kids and be done with the whole thing. They don't actually care what happens to them. Her foster father and I think that they only say it's unsuitable because he doesn't want to give her the Prozac they prescribed and instead just wants to get her actual therapy to help her work through her problems. Why would they want to drug up kids? That's how her mom got started down the path she's on. After the third Baker Act, Tim started to think that Kid 2 wasn't actually suicidal and was just craving attention from her mother, hoping that eventually she would call and ask if she's okay. She hadn't yet. All of this has been immensely taxing on the family, particularly for Mary. She once explained to me how she saw herself in the kids. Being a second-generation Eastern European in the North, she didn't have a social safety net besides her family. Her father was the town drunk, and her mother, quote, got taken to the loony bin all the time. Eventually her grandmother, who didn't speak English, reluctantly agreed to take her. Her grandfather used to beat her because she was a reminder of her parents. I can't give up on these kids because I know what they're going through, she once told me. The same thing happened to me, and if it wasn't for my sister, who was 16 years older than me, who could eventually afford to raise me, I don't know where I'd be right now. Tim now despises the state's systems. He loves the Republican government that the state of Florida boasts proudly, but hates the way that these types of social welfare systems operate. He associates these issues with the running list of things he hates that the government provides to people like Jessica, who he firmly believes don't deserve it. She abuses her kids and uses hard drugs, and still people like us pay for her cell phone, her health insurance, her food, everything. Meanwhile, I have to wake up at 5 a.m. every day and bust my ass just to get by. It isn't right, said Tim. Though paradoxical, Tim's relationship with the state government makes some sense. On a rhetorical or theoretical level, he believes in what the governor and state legislature are doing. The problems his family is facing, as he sees them, run much deeper than current administrations. Even though the state has been in his party's control for decades, still, it's the institutions themselves which are corrupt and broken. They've existed long before anyone around had any say over them, and the current legislative body has simply inherited an irreparable system. I've long had conversations with he and Lisa about how they could try to enact change. The way that I see it, if the judicial system is filled with lazy or lenient judges and the nonprofits are filled with incompetent or uncaring caseworkers, it seems like the issues they find with the system lie in the bedrock. They must be firmly rooted in the very laws which facilitate and manage these structures. Though things feel irreparable and there has been permanent harm done to the children's well-being, Tim and Lisa's family can still try to make their story heard. I've encouraged them at great length to contact their state congressperson and senator. That's not even a priority, Tim said to me. I just don't know how much it could change, honestly. I don't know why they'd care to speak to us. We aren't special or unique. We spoke to that one guy because you know him. I've wanted to call him back, but he told us Florida was used as a model of what to do right. I can't imagine what all this is like in other states. If you liked that, please stay tuned this month for the next few parts of Fish Pharmaceuticals and Phil. The photo I chose for today shows a Huey parked. The front has a painting of a red wheel with white feathery wings coming out of it. The side window holds a sign which reads, Road Service, with a fuel tank painted on it. Though not mentioned in this letter, it is a very interesting and detailed photo. Once again, hopefully showcasing the versatility of the aircraft. May 15, 1965. Dearest Suzie, I have been getting letters from you pretty regularly here lately, and of course I am tickled to death. I'm looking forward to getting some slides of you and the boys now. This is Saturday, and we have the day off. We needed it too, because we really flew for the past 2 days. It was a real profitable operation that we were on, though. The final count on VC dead was 215, and I got my share. Yesterday morning, we were flying in the battle area and decided that all of the VC that weren't killed had moved out, so we landed to look for damage. It was quite a sight. Luckily, I had my camera, and I took a lot of pictures. I don't know if I will ever have guts enough to show them to anyone, but I have them anyway. They are pretty bloody. I also picked up one of the rifles that they were using against us. I can keep one as a souvenir, or however you spell that, I think. I had the worst scare of my life day before yesterday. I was flying around an area with a lot of foxholes when one of our gunners thought he saw somebody moving in one of them. We made a circle around it, and sure enough, there were 2 men trying to hide in one little hole. When they realized that we had seen them, they jumped out and started shooting us. We were all so surprised we couldn't even shoot. We made a turn and came back at them. We must have fired 8,000 bullets and 20 rockets at those 2 before we finally got them. They were some tough cookies. As I said, we are off today. I slept until 10 o'clock this morning, then I got up and just messed around with nothing to do. It is 3 in the afternoon now. Our club is closed for repairs, so the only place we have to eat today is the mess hall. I got up too late for breakfast, so I had some cookies and coffee. Then I didn't feel like eating lunch, so I didn't go. The only thing I could find in the PX this afternoon was Vienna sausage, so I got a can of them. Needless to say, I am really looking forward to supper, and I don't care what it is. Oh yes, I wasn't going to tell you about this until I got home, but I will anyway. I haven't had a cigarette since the 2nd of May. That has been 2 weeks. That is, I didn't have one until this afternoon. Boredom got to me today, and I just put out my first one. I have been thinking of something to send you for an anniversary present next month. And if you don't mind, I don't think I will send anything. I'm going to get you something, but what it costs to send it, I could spend on something else for you or the boys. So, if you don't object, I will get you a present and write and tell you what it is and then bring it when I come home. It makes me sick to have to pay airmail rates. Another reason for not sending anything is that I want to send Charlie home next month if I can. That is something I'm going to have to pay anyway, and I'm too busy lately to take good care of him, so if you want me to, I will try to get him off. I'm supposed to go on R&R to Saigon on the 2nd of next month, and I figured I would just take him with me. Let me know what you think of this idea. It has been miserably hot here all day today, but now it is starting to cloud up and looks like rain. I sure hope so. Well, I am about to run out of talk, so I guess I will quit for now. I love you all and miss you all very much. Tell the boys I love them and miss them, and you take care of yourself. Remember, I love you very much. Sincerely, Bill. There were 2 points of interest in this letter that I should mention. First is what Popi describes as they fight the VC. The photos he took on that day are, in fact, pretty bloody. I saw one of the photos for the first time when I was 23. This particular image was in Popi's personal briefcase. My dad pulled the briefcase out of his closet, dusted it off, and thumbed through the newspaper clippings about Popi getting arrested in Papua New Guinea, as well as the citations for his many medals until he got to a large black and white print. My dad pulled it out, concealing it from Meemaw, and handed it to me. I was immediately shocked. Being handed the photo was unreal. It was printed on old matte photo paper and was quite large. For some reason, it reminded me of a Matthew Brady photograph. Brady was a famous Civil War photographer who is synonymous with the war. I do not know just how long I stared at the photo, but it was long enough for my uncle who was standing nearby to comment on how quickly I had left the conversation. The first thing I noticed was a man's face turned to the camera. He had a lifeless expression, but one of pain, which looked directly at the viewer. Around him are many limbs, totally scattered about the frame. I tried to count the number of bodies, but lost track. Next, I noticed the river in the background. I don't want to imagine what color it was with all that carnage flowing into it. The final thing I saw were eviscerated organs in the center of the picture, belonging to the man with the lifeless face. This made me feel guilty. Why had I not noticed the organs first? I could not imagine the pain he had felt before his death, if he even felt any pain at all. Walter Benjamin, a German philosopher, made the argument that after the invention of the photograph, people only remembered things as images, pictures. Is this the image Popi saw every time he thought of Vietnam? Why did he keep it in his personal collection? Was this photo an indication of a responsibility? A reminder of things he would not be allowed to forget? Things he could not forget if he tried? I could not find the slide for this photo. Where was the negative? Why only keep the print? Meemaw eventually chimed in. Is that one of Popi's black and white photos? I snapped back into reality. Yeah, I've never seen this before. She nodded. Me neither. He wouldn't let me see those, and I never cared to look. My dad came over to take the photo from me and showed it to my uncle. He laughed when he grabbed it. Isn't it amazing what a rocket can do to a human body? Besides this photo, there are a series of pictures in his collection of slides, many of which depict men who were tunnel rats getting smoked out of their holes in bombs. There are at least 7 in a series, which show different men laying in a field or under the ground, their grotesque faces at the bottom of holes. I will not be sharing any of these photos, at least not publicly. Not on here. I know they were enemy combatants. I know Popi is the one who took the photos. But as an anthropologist, and as a human being, I would rather treat their bodies with some sort of decency or dignity. I hope my description is good enough for you. The next point of interest is Popi's rifle. Years ago, my dad shared with me that Popi had brought one back over and that he thought an uncle or a cousin had it. I considered it lost and was happy to find, in Popi's personal briefcase, the export paperwork from South Vietnam allowing him to take the rifle with him, written in Vietnamese. Google Translate helped me figure out what it said. Eventually, we found out one of my dad's brothers had it. Long story short, it finally made its way to me a few months ago. Up until that point, I knew very little about it, and when it was finally in my hands, I determined that it was a Mosin Nagant. The Mosin Nagant is a bolt-action rifle originally developed by the Imperial Russian Army in the late 19th century and widely used through both world wars. Chambered in 7.62 by 54 mm, it was rugged, reliable, and produced in massive quantities by the Soviet Union and its allies. By the time of the Vietnam War, the Mosin Nagant was largely considered outdated by modern military standards, yet it remained in widespread use among NVA and VC forces, particularly in its M91/30 sniper configuration and earlier infantry variants. These rifles were often provided by the USSR or China as part of Cold War military aid packages to communist-aligned forces. Popi's rifle has a Russian maker's mark on it and is stamped indicating it was built in 1961. In Vietnam, Mosin Nagants were typically used by guerrilla units and rural fighters who favored their durability and the high power of the cartridge, especially in sniper or ambush roles. While not suited for rapid-fire engagements, they were ideal for hit-and-run tactics, long-range potshots, and nighttime harassment of U.S. and ARVN forces. American GIs frequently encountered Mosin Nagants when sweeping enemy positions, and many were brought back to the U.S. as war trophies. Their presence in the conflict is a reminder that even by the 1960s, the tools of war didn't have to be modern to be deadly effective, especially in the hands of a determined, resourceful enemy. The photo I chose for today depicts one of Popi's friends at a range, holding a Mosin Nagant. It may be the one Popi brought back home, but we can't be sure. It has a bayonet attached to the barrel. When Popi brought his rifle back, he decided to get it nickel-plated, which I've been informed has hurt the value. Maybe to someone else, it's just as valuable to me. May 65. Dearest Suzie, you are going to keep on and spoil me. I have gotten a letter from you every day this week. So you weigh 130 pounds now. Does that dress I sent you still fit? I was going to get you a nice one made, but I want to make sure it will fit you. I thought I wrote and told you before that I bought a slide projector. It is one of those remote control jobs, and is real nice. It only costs $36. Oh yeah, while I'm thinking about it, don't try to send me any present for our anniversary. Anything that you sent would cost too much to mail, and anyway, what I want you couldn't even get in an envelope. We aren't working today. This is the third day we have been off, but when we do work, we go at it. Don't worry about me extending. They might make us stay. There has been some talk about that, but I doubt it. But I wouldn't volunteer to stay over here for all the tea in China. I guess you know by now that we don't have to pay income taxes over here. I guess I will be getting quite a bit back. I don't know when, though. I will close for now, sending you and the boys all my love. I miss you all very much. Sincerely, Bill. The following is the next part of a piece I wrote titled Fish, Pharmaceuticals, and Phil. I won't give much context. I hope you can piece it together on your own. I'll continue to provide parts during this month, when there are days which have less to talk about. As with most everything else in this project, this is deeply personal and meaningful to me. I hope you enjoy. The situation feels entirely out of their control, as they get jostled between caseworkers and play the waiting game with court dates. Meanwhile, the children, at least the older two, seem to have regressed while being in the system's care. We have a situation where things feel broken, and those who are suffering feel unable to find help from the very people who have the only sort of ability to directly fix the institutions which need fixing. We have a system which exists directly at the order of the government, but operates independently of those who fund the agencies and make the rules. Tim believes that the bureaucratic system in Tallahassee, which has existed since the city's founding, is to blame for what is going on, and that because there are so many moving parts, not even his ideological counterparts in the legislature have what it takes to fix things, at least not fast enough to help the kids that need it right now. What's going to happen when they become adults? Do they even have any options? When I was told about Kid 1's first arrest, which was heartbreaking for Tim and Lisa to tell me about, Lisa finished the story by saying, "And he was just telling us about how he wanted to be a lawyer when he grew up." I didn't say anything to her at the time, but looking back, the statement is almost comical. He was born addicted to drugs, raised by an abusive grandmother, and now mother, and has been tossed around by this system. He hasn't had structure, and school is hard enough as it is without any of this. I don't think he ever had a chance of being a lawyer. The optimism and inability to see the situation for what it was intrigued me. I felt compelled at one point to discuss with them how often people in the foster care system become homeless or have lifelong run-ins with the law, but it felt like I'd be pouring gasoline on a fire. The hopelessness felt by the family as a result of coming face to face with a massive institution against which they are powerless is what ultimately culminated in Mary asking for my help. This family is facing an intergenerational dilemma where their own children, siblings, and parents have suffered from untreated mental illness, drug addiction, alcoholism, poverty, and the misuse and abuse of the law by figures of authority. And now, those who have managed to stay on better paths and make healthier decisions than those closest to them still feel like they are being punished. Mary worked hard, raising her litter of kids, and is rewarded at the end of her life with the anxiety felt by someone unsure of what will happen to those most vulnerable in her large family. Meanwhile, dredging up ancient traumas she experienced in her childhood. Lisa and Tim, though initially trying to be accommodating and generous, have now been pulled into a whirlpool of time, energy, and emotion, constantly asked to right the wrongs they feel others committed, even when Lisa has other siblings who have not been involved at all. Face to face with all this, Mary thought to go to the one person in her whole life that she believed could actually make a difference, Dr. Phil. It hurts me to think of her solution to the situation, but it makes some sense. She knows his influence, and he is a doctor after all. She's seen him work miracles for years by sending bratty kids to the ranch, empowering those captured by drugs to attend rehab, and giving parents tips and tricks to help withstand the onslaught of the slings and arrows they experience when living with unruly kids. I didn't ask her how often Dr. Phil checks up with his former patients on his show, knowing how effective his work really is when the cameras aren't rolling. The parasocial relationship seemed to focus only on the positives. I instead asked what she expected would result from me writing Dr. Phil on her behalf. "Well, to start," she said, "you don't have to put your name on it. I'll say I wrote it. That way, you don't have to be involved. I don't want you to stake your reputation on something like this." I chuckled. "I'm not worried so much about myself, but go on." She looked around for approval from Tim and Lisa, but they were lost in another conversation. "I've seen a lot of people on there who aren't even half as bad as Jessica, and the stuff that's going on with her kids. I don't know why he wouldn't want to help." I nodded. "I see what you're saying, but what can Dr. Phil do that the state of Florida can't?" She looked incredulous. "What do you mean? They haven't been able to do anything. At the very least, he could bring attention to all this." "Sure, but would you even want him to bring attention to this? There are a lot of people involved here. If the kids are already being made fun of at school and having a rough time, how much worse could this make it?" She shook her head in protest. "He'd help them. He wouldn't make it worse, and maybe instead of arresting Jessica, he could get her real help." Another blow to my emotions. After everything, she just wanted to get her granddaughter what she thought was the proper help. There was still a chance for redemption. There was still a chance for good. Jessica was not lost. Things could be made right. Mary might have said this optimism stemmed from her Catholic upbringing coming out in practice. I would wager she was just a genuinely good person trying to keep her family together. I had to get Tim and Lisa's opinions. I locked eyes with Tim. "What do you guys think about this?" He looked at me quizzically. "About what?" "Miss Mary here wants me to write Dr. Phil on behalf of your family to help with Jessica and her kids." His head dropped. Lisa took a deep breath. "I thought we talked about this," she said to Mary. "We don't need to go to Dr. Phil. He couldn't do anything anyway. The problems Jessica has can't be fixed. She's been given enough chances to prove that. I interrupted. Has she? When was the last time she was in rehab? Like, real rehab. Thank you for listening. If you liked that, please stay tuned for the final part of Fish, Pharmaceuticals, and Phil. The photo I chose for today was taken in some town. In the foreground is a young man riding a bicycle. In the center of the image is a propaganda poster with a map of Vietnam on it. It is written in Vietnamese, but I may assume it is explaining the conflict and what people are doing. May. Dearest Suzie, I got a nice long letter from you tonight. I ain't kidding you. You are going to keep on and spoil me. It is getting to the point now where I kind of just expect to find a letter when I come in at night. Today was a real quiet day for us. We had an operation, but it didn't amount to much. You explained about the insurance policy, but I was wondering if our premiums went up any because of Johnny. I still didn't get Minnie's letter. They might have made a mistake on the address. How long do you plan on staying up there? I know that my check will be $50 richer this month, and maybe more, so you should have plenty of money to make the trip. I want you to. In fact, I insist, and don't be disappointed if I don't get through. Sometimes you can, and sometimes you can't, but I will try. Yes, I am an instrument instructor. I'm also an aircraft instructor according to the Department of the Army, but I don't practice. I am still scared to death of auto rotations. I do quite a bit of instrument training, though. In fact, I helped a captain up here get his helicopter instrument ticket last week. He didn't have one before, so he was pretty happy about that. Still no orders, but I look for them every day. They should be in soon. Well, I will close for tonight. I love you very much. I'm still counting days, but I hate to write them down on letters because they seem to go by so darn slow. Kiss the boys for me. Sincerely, Bill. In May of 1965, as Popi was flying missions out of Vinh Long and counting the days until he could come home, the war around him was escalating, politically, diplomatically, and violently. From the cockpit of a Huey, he wouldn't have seen the meetings playing out in Beijing or Washington, but the consequences of those conversations were continuing to shape the conflict he was flying into day after day. On May 13th, President Lyndon Johnson paused the ongoing bombing campaign against North Vietnam, Operation Rolling Thunder, in a cautious attempt to bring the North to the negotiating table. But North Vietnam wasn't buying it. They dismissed the pause as a public relations stunt, accusing the U.S. of trying to disguise an even greater escalation of the war. Meanwhile, Ho Chi Minh traveled to China to meet with Mao Zedong. He promised that North Vietnam would carry the weight of the war themselves, but asked for more support. Mao agreed, offering anti-aircraft crews, engineers, supplies, and military aid, but with one condition. Chinese troops would not enter the fight unless the U.S. invaded North Vietnam directly. By the end of the month, 160,000 Chinese personnel were quietly stationed in the north, not to fight, but to build roads, airfields, and defenses, all of it laying the groundwork for a war that was rapidly expanding behind the scenes. In Washington, not everyone was convinced that deeper involvement would lead to victory. One of Johnson's advisors, Clark Clifford, wrote him a letter urging caution. Keep the troop numbers low, he warned, or risk stepping into a quagmire. It's a word that would come to define the American war in Vietnam, but in 1965, it was still more warning than reality. Back in South Vietnam, an internal instability continued. A handful of officers and civilians, many of them Catholic and connected to previous coup attempts, were arrested on charges of plotting to assassinate Prime Minister Quat and kidnap General Key. Meanwhile, Senator Ernest Gruening, one of the only two voices in Congress who had opposed the Gulf of Tonkin resolution the year before, publicly called for a full investigation and the withdrawal of U.S. troops from Vietnam. In hindsight, it reads like a warning few were willing to hear. All of this was unfolding as Popi was writing letters home about his monkey's antics, silk gifts, and what size shirts to buy for the boys. It's a strange thing to hold both timelines in your hands, the personal and the political. But that's part of what this project is all about, tracking one man's life against the broader current of history and seeing how those currents eventually pull us all forward. The photo I chose for today depicts a helicopter flying in the air. The photo shows the side of the aircraft. In the back is clearly a man with a machine gun. Below, a river is cutting through the countryside. May 65. Dearest Suzie, received your letter today with Billy's school paper. Looks to me like he is doing very well. That paper looked good. Tell him I am real proud of him. Glad to see you were able to get out for an afternoon. Also glad you and Shirley are getting along so well. She is pretty good. Did Mom have any trouble with Brett when she gave him a haircut? I'll bet he is a mess. Hurry up and get some pictures made and send me some. Get some slides for me. We have a USO show here tonight. It will break up the monotony anyway, I hope. We had a nice quiet day today. We made one trip to the range, and that is all we've done all day. Well, much as I hate to send a short letter like this, there is just nothing happening worth writing about, which is the way I like it. I love you all very much and miss you, same as always, but filling up 4 or 5 pages of that is not going to make either of us less lonely. Aren't you glad we finally own a halfway decent car? I love you. Sincerely, Bill. The following is the final part of a piece I wrote titled Fish, Pharmaceuticals, and Phil. I haven't given much context, because I hope you can piece it together on your own. As with most everything else in this project, this is a deeply personal and meaningful piece to me. I hope you enjoy. She's never been to a real rehab, but they make her get clean when she's in jail, replied Lisa. Real rehab is too expensive. The state of Florida can't afford that, and DCF or CPS won't pay for it. They just want her to get clean on her own. I felt a surge of confidence, totally forgetting my place. Well, it seems like she hasn't actually tried to go straight. You said she has mental health issues, right? Mixing those with drugs makes it sound like she isn't really in control of her actions very much, at least not like you or me. Maybe at first she was, but now? Who knows? Tim didn't like my perspective. She lost any sort of benefit of the doubt when she brought kids into the world high on drugs and abused them. I nodded, backing off. I didn't imagine any of the kids were planned, and I knew most of their family was pretty firmly pro-life. I can't imagine she felt like she had much of an option. At least, not with the first kid anyway. Well, Dr. Phil could get her into one. He has connections. Then with the kids, he can help them shape up real quick, Mary chimed in, deflecting the tension. I pictured the 4 kids on the show, the oldest picking up a chair and throwing it or something, which would make exciting, profitable television. I immediately saw their faces plastered across the internet, the center point of countless memes and reaction videos on YouTube from guys who made a living off of commentating on things, finding ways to poke fun at a few kids with serious problems, attracting clicks and ultimately revenue to their channels. It felt gross. Yeah, I don't know how much I could do, Miss Mary. I know he's the big doctor on TV and all that, but I'm not sure he does a lot of good all the time. It doesn't matter what he could do, said Tim. Clearly, they've had this conversation before. These nonprofits and caseworkers need to get their shit together, plain and simple. They suck. The judges need to be replaced with people who take these things seriously and know what they're talking about. I felt an impulse to suggest he talk to the congresspeople again, but realized we'd get trapped in a never-ending loop of blame and empty solutions. Propelled by decades of compounded socioeconomic issues, backed into a corner by a dysfunctional bureaucracy, and still looking to make things right, Mary looked to a strong man for help. He was an outsider. He was well known and generally respected. He was charismatic and someone she had known for decades, even if he didn't know her back. I couldn't blame her. She needed help and wanted to request a lifeline from an improbable ally, someone she genuinely believed could fix things. I saw firsthand how people fell prey to strongmen. Thankfully, Dr. Phil wasn't beating the drum across airwaves, offering solutions to the world's problems. He kept his expertise to his TV show, but things made sense. When the problems feel impossible to solve on your own, and like you're given no help by those who are tasked with helping you, you turn to outsiders. You look at people who can fix the problems, who don't have to act within the boundaries set by traditional institutions or trusted systems. Dr. Phil could fix the kids. He had non-traditional means and didn't have to play by the rules. Maybe he would be crass, maybe honest. But maybe he wasn't much like the guys they normally saw on TV, in suits who made false promises every 2 years. Were you having problems? Have you done everything you can to solve them? Well, he could fix them for you. Look away and let him do his job. Don't worry about the means, how parading children on television and airing dirty laundry could have long-term effects on a completely vulnerable family. If publicity is the cost of a solution, pay it. Deal with any problems he may create later. When you get past this one right in front of you, you'll have time. What other options do you have? Faustian bargains be damned. You've already given everything you think you can give away. You've lost time and sleep and tears and so many breaths from discussing this for hours a day. You can't wait. You can't trust that eventually the laws will be changed and judges will turn infallible and caseworkers will get their heads on straight. Little girls want to kill themselves and little boys with dreams of being lawyers are hitting police. This whole time, there's been nothing you can do about it. Are you there, Dr. Phil? It's me, Alex. Can you please fix these kids? Can you get their mom off drugs? Can you bring their dads back? Can you give Benny a home? Can you take Mary's mom out of the loony bin? Eventually, I did my best to steer the conversation away from this. It was tough, though. All roads lead back to this massive elephant sitting at the dinner table with us. Soon enough, the meal arrived. The fish was fantastic, totally worth the money. After singing happy birthday and exchanging gifts, I found a reason to excuse myself early and get home, relieved that the problems didn't come home with me. The photo I chose for today is at a shooting range. Not the kind Popi was going to regularly, since that was a range for the hog, but a shooting range nonetheless. These appear to all be captured rifles, many of which are Russian or Chinese made. It appears that Mosins are stacked up into pyramids in the back, while automatic rifles with bipods are set up on the ground in front of them. May 22, 1965. Dearest Suzie, I am still getting that letter a day. I love you for them. We have had another interesting mission yesterday and today. There is an island about 40 miles off the coast of Ha Tien. I think that town is on your map. And both Vietnam and Cambodia want it. So yesterday, the VN government put 2 battalions of troops out there and we went out to support them. It is a beautiful island with a real nice beach. Yesterday, we just went out and sat on standby, so we all went swimming and had a good time. Today, we did quite a bit of flying for them, so we didn't get any swimming, but it was still a good mission. I took a lot of slides. I'll send you some of them when I get them developed. I was just tickled to death with Billy. It is a pretty darn record not to miss a day of school. I want to get him a nice present for that. So I will tell you what I want to do, if it is all right with you. As I told you before, I will be getting a tax return, but I won't get it before the 1st of August, and it will amount to about $250. They have a real small portable TV in the Saigon PX. It cost $119, but it is real good. I have been thinking about one of them for him since I first saw them, but I didn't think I could ever get one. Now that I'm getting that check, I can see a way to do it, if you don't mind. If you don't mind me getting it, just write and let me know, and don't tell him. Just tell him that I will bring him a surprise. I went down the other day and had each one of the boys, and you, a blue shirt like me that I had myself made. Well, yours is a blouse. They are blue, short sleeve, with a white knight embroidered on the right side and initials on the left pocket. That is, mine and the boys have initials. Yours will have Sue on it. I used the sizes that you sent me, so I hope they all fit. I was going to keep them and bring them with me, but since you are going to be home next month, I guess I'll break down and send them payday. I keep saying I'm not going to send anything else airmail, but we both know better. The white knight that I had put on them is a sign that the platoon I was in before used. I thought it would look better than a snake. If you're wondering about the different ink in this letter, I keep about 3 different pens laying on my desk, and people keep walking in and talking to me, and I pick up a new pen each time. Well, I guess I will close for tonight. I still plan to try to call you when I go to Saigon. I love you all very much, and miss you too much. Tell Billy I am real proud of him for not missing any school. All my love, Bill. On May 22, 1965, Popi writes about a rare and surreal mission supporting the South Vietnamese troops on an island off the coast of Ha Tien, claimed by both Vietnam and Cambodia. The assignment, while politically tense, was unusually peaceful. A day of standby turned into a beach trip complete with swimming and snapshots. Popi describes the island as beautiful and relaxing, even as he acknowledges the geopolitical tug-of-war just beneath the surface. The next day brought more flying, but the memory of that quiet shoreline lingers, a moment of lightness in an otherwise heavy war. Back at base, he returns to the comforts of home through gift planning and pride in his son. Billy's perfect school attendance becomes the reason for a surprise, a portable TV from the Saigon PX, purchased with a future tax return. He also shares news of matching blue shirts, custom made with short sleeves, embroidered initials, and a white knight insignia chosen for meaning and memory. The letter blends warmth, humor, and the mundane with brief glimmers of something larger at play, echoing the strange contradictions that define Popi's time in Vietnam. I believe I've mentioned the shirts before, but they were one of the first artifacts I found while cleaning out Meemaw's trailer when she was moving out. She had all three of the boys' shirts left. Each one was small and blue and had their name embroidered on it. There was one for Billy, Brian, and Brett. No Bruce yet. He hadn't been born. I sent the one for Brett to his youngest daughter, my closest cousin. The one for Brian was sent to Brian. Who knows if he still has it. Since Billy has passed, and I didn't feel like I could trust any of his kids with his shirt, that one went to my dad. He wanted it anyway. It is at least something he can remember his dad and his brother fondly by. These shirts are little reminders that most of the gifts Popi got for people over there were customized. Time was put into them. They weren't just things he got in the airport on his way out. It makes you think about how war, in some ways, makes soldiers act like tourists. The shirts are without a doubt symbols of his military service and company, but they're also handmade by a craftsman in Vietnam. They're keepsakes, artifacts to someone like me. This means that Popi was more than just a soldier when he bought them. He was a collector, a tourist, a father, and a consumer. What did the guy making the shirts do after the war was over? Was he sad to lose his business? The photo I chose for today was clearly taken at night. It features Popi, outside, wearing a Cobra shirt. The flash is washing out his face, but he's clearly got a big and aggressive cobra on his breast. No surprise he went with the knight, and not the cobra, for the kids. "25 May. Dearest Suzie, yesterday I didn't get my usual letter from you, so I figured you had finally just missed a day writing. Then this morning I had to go to the orderly room real early, and the mail clerk met me at the door with a letter that came in late last night. Then I went back at 1100, and today's mail had come in, and I got another letter. I hated to hear Jim had to go to the Dominican Republic, but I'm not surprised. But maybe he will be home before you get ready to go to Jersey. That is a good idea, getting him to help you drive part way. The other day I took that picture you sent me of Billy, and a little one I had of Brian, and got 2 colored enlargements made of them. They probably cost me $1.50 each with frames, but I wish you could see them. That old boy did a fine job on them. We aren't working today, but we have sure made up for it yesterday. One of the Vietnamese companies near here got ambushed, and many of them were killed, including 2 Americans. We spent the whole day searching for them. I flew 8.5 hours yesterday. I really appreciate you writing every day, even if I don't. Notice I didn't say couldn't. I have enough time to write every day, but most days I am just beat at the end of the day. Even when I don't fly, I stay pretty busy. Tell the boys I miss them, and I love all of you very much. It won't be long now. All my love, Bill." In today's letter, Bill opens with a small moment of joy. 2 letters from Suzie in one day. It's a reminder of how much of these daily notes mean to him, how carefully he waits for word from home. Even something as ordinary as a delay in the mail becomes a moment of worry, a gap in the rhythm that keeps him going. But the letter arrives, and so does another. It's a good day for mail, and a good day for remembering what he's holding on to. He also writes briefly about his brother Jim, a Marine now being sent to the Dominican Republic. In May of 1965, the U.S. had begun military intervention in the Dominican Civil War under the pretext of stopping a potential communist takeover. Bill doesn't dwell on it, but his tone is telling. He's not surprised by Jim's orders. One brother flying combat missions in Vietnam, the other en route to a Caribbean conflict. It's a quiet reminder of how deeply this era called upon young men from military families, how service for many wasn't a question, but a given. Bill hopes Jim can help Suzie with the drive north to Jersey, and it's clear he's already imagining his family in motion without him. The letter also contains one of those small emotional gestures that says so much more than it appears to. Bill had 2 photo enlargements made of their sons, Billy and Brian, and he writes with pride about how beautifully they turned out. He wishes Suzie could see them. It's another example of how he's reaching for home in every way he can, preserving it, framing it, keeping it close even as the war carries on around him. And that war is still painfully real. He mentions that a nearby South Vietnamese unit was ambushed the day before, leaving many dead, including 2 Americans. Bill and his crew spent the day searching for them, logging more than 8 hours in the air. He doesn't describe the scene or the mission in detail, but the weight of it lingers in his tone. He doesn't have to say what it was like. We can feel the toll it takes, physically, emotionally. Even on days when he doesn't fly, he says he's still beat. The pace is relentless, the risks are constant, and yet, somehow, he's still thinking about those photos, about his brother's travel plans, and about how good it will feel to be home. That's the note he closes on. It won't be long now. It's a phrase we've heard more and more lately in his letters, a short-timer's mantra. But this time, it lands differently. Coming after news of his brother, after remembering how hard things can be for everyone, those 5 words feel more like a prayer than a calendar check. He's hanging on, not just for himself, but for the family that's writing him every day. And we're left, once again, with the portrait of a man trying to hold together the pieces of war, family, and memory, knowing that soon, if he's lucky, he'll be home again to put them all in the same frame. The photo I chose for today shows an injured Vietnamese man sitting in the back of a Huey. Standing in front of him is an ARVN officer. In the foreground is a blurry profile of a Vietnamese man. Could he be a civilian? A fellow member of ARVN? A POW? May. Dearest Suzie, I am still getting a letter a day, and that is real good, considering that I don't return the favor. But it seems that every time I sit down to write, something comes up. Thanks for the pictures, too. That little Brett is a cute little guy, and you look good enough to eat. Disregard that remark. I just found out that Ed Piper was killed today. I guess he was in a mid-air collision at Quin Chon. I feel real bad at that news, but I only thought you would like to know since you thought so much of him. Tragedies are just about an everyday occurrence over here, though. We had another hard day yesterday. We flew 9 hours. They get longer and longer. We have another award ceremony Sunday. I'll be getting my 5th air medal. They are a pain in the neck anymore. So far, I have won 13 of the darn things, so I'll be standing awards formations for 2 years from now. I imagine, and when you've seen one, you've seen them all. Anyway, I will get my 3 days to Saigon on the 2nd, if nothing happens. I still plan to call you. Also, I am planning right now to take my free 7 days in Nha Trang. They have a real nice beach up there, and I don't care anything about going to Bangkok or Hong Kong. Well, I guess I will close for today. I love you very much. Kiss my boys for me. All my love. Bill. In this letter from late May 1965, Popi's tone feels different, duller around the edges, a little more worn down. The war has been long. The missions are long. The days stretch on. He opens with thanks for the photos of Suzie and the kids, offering a moment of lightness, calling Brett cute and slipping in a flirtatious compliment about Suzie that he quickly walks back with, disregard that remark. But the letter shifts almost immediately after that. He's just found out that Ed Piper, a man Suzie knew and clearly thought highly of, was killed in a mid-air collision at Quin Chon. He doesn't elaborate, doesn't dramatize. He simply says, I feel real bad at that news. It's a moment of understated grief. Quy Nhon, or Quy Nhon, was a coastal city in central South Vietnam, and while not as dangerous as areas further south, it still saw intense military activity, especially for aviation units operating out of its airfield. A mid-air collision is sudden. It's clean, at least in writing. There's no scene to describe, just a name and a finality. And that's what makes it hit harder, in a way. Because in Bill's world, these losses are so frequent now, they're almost routine. Tragedies are just about an everyday occurrence over here, he writes. And you can tell he means it. That isn't an exaggeration. It's a quiet statement of fact from a man who has watched too many friends go down. He's still flying daily, 9 hours in the air the day before. And that kind of relentless tempo leaves little room for processing grief. There's no time to sit with what's happened. You acknowledge the loss, write a letter, maybe you fly over the same region the next day. It's the emotional math of survival. Even the things that once held meaning, like medals, start to feel hollow. They're a pain in the neck anymore, he says, referring to yet another award ceremony. He's received 13 air medals by this point, and his 5th official citation coming up that weekend. It should feel like an honor, but to him, it's just another standing formation under the sun. When you've seen one, you've seen them all. There's no arrogance in his voice, just fatigue, the weight of repetition, the disconnect between the military's ceremonial rhythm and the emotional wear that combat leaves behind. But amid that weariness, Bill still makes plans. He's looking forward to his trip to Saigon in a few days, where he hopes to call Suzie, and he's thinking ahead to his R&R, saying he wants to spend his free 7 days in Nha Trang, a coastal town known for its beaches. He doesn't want to go to Bangkok or Hong Kong again. What he's craving isn't a spectacle. It's calm, a beach, a moment to breathe, a break from the daily toll that has chipped away at his nerves and his patience. This letter captures something important about the war, not just the danger or the loss, but the way it wears down people over time. The way a man like Bill, who has flown hours upon hours of combat missions, begins to detach in order to keep going. His sadness over Piper's death is real, but subdued. His frustration with awards is honest. His exhaustion is palpable. It's all stuff we've seen before. But underneath it, he's still holding on to the hope of rest, of a call home, of something like peace. And maybe that's what this letter is about. Not the medals, or the crash, or the long hours in the air, but the fact that even at his most tired, he is still trying. He is still writing home. He is still making plans. He is still signing off with, "Kiss my boys for me." It's one of the truest glimpses we get of the quiet perseverance it takes to survive a war like this. One letter, one flight, one loss at a time. The photo I chose for today depicts yellow smoke in the middle of a field. Behind it is a town or base. Beside it looks to be a rice farm. Knights of the Air, 114th Aviation Company, parentheses, AML, APO 167, crossed out 96357, San Francisco, California. 29, May, 65. Dearest Suzie, I am not out of regular paper, but this sexy stuff was available, so I thought I would use it. So far today, we have nothing planned, as I am just kind of taking it easy. In my last letter, I told you about Ed Piper getting killed, and I said he was at Quy Nhon. He was at VietnamWar. I'm sure by now that you have heard about the accident. I've had to change my R&R day. I will be going to Saigon on the 5th, so I will call you on the 6th. That is the 5th here, I think. I was sorry to hear about your car troubles. So that transmission is very bad? It won't affect your trip, will it? Does it look like Jim will make it back in time to help you? I hope so. That would take a load off my mind. Charlie and I are doing fine, just looking forward to getting home. I love you very much. Sincerely, Bill. Popi's comment about sexy paper refers to the heading on the paper that he wrote this letter on. It features silhouettes of a Huey helicopter from the side and a knight chess piece. These were two very prominent symbols for the U.S. Army's 114th Aviation Company. For those of you that don't remember, the 114th Aviation Company, nicknamed the Knights of the Air, was one of the Army's first helicopter units to see sustained combat in Vietnam. In fact, they were one of the organizations in the military that helped set the standard for helicopter combat and operations in war. Formed in 1963 and stationed out of Vinh Long Army Airfield in the Mekong Delta, the 114th became a workhorse of the air war, flying UH-1 Huey helicopters through some of the most dangerous terrain in the country. The Mekong Delta wasn't just muddy and remote, it was tactically vital and hard to navigate by land. So these pilots and crews did the impossible every day, ferrying troops into hot zones, hauling out the wounded, escorting convoys, and providing aerial cover when things got hairy. Missions were fast, frequent, and often unforgiving. What set the 114th apart, besides the sheer volume of work, was its strong sense of identity. Their aircraft were often painted with a white knight emblem, and that symbol carried through to patches, t-shirts, and even gifts sent home. It's the same white knight Popi had stitched on the blue shirts he mailed to Suzie and the boys. The camaraderie was real, and it didn't end when the war did. After Vietnam, the 114th was deactivated, but the bond among its members lived on. Veterans of the unit stayed connected through reunions and later formed an official association. They even published a coffee table book, collecting photos and memories of their time in country. Popi makes a brief appearance in it, a small moment, but a lasting one. The association even had a meeting this year, in 2025. After 9 years of continuous combat operations in Vietnam, the 114th Assault Helicopter Company concluded its mission at Vinh Long on February 29, 1972. But their story didn't end there. The unit was reassigned to the Panama Canal Zone, where it continued to serve with distinction. In Panama, the 114th took on a variety of missions, including humanitarian aid, disaster relief, and regional support operations. They provided critical assistance during natural disasters and participated in joint exercises, demonstrating their versatility and commitment that had defined them in Vietnam. This phase of service continued until the unit was officially deactivated at Fort Clayton, Panama in October 1987. Today, the legacy of the 114th lives on through the 114th Aviation Company Association, as previously mentioned. Comprising of former members and those who supported the unit, the association serves as a hub for preserving the history and camaraderie of the Knights of the Air. They continue to organize reunions and maintain a comprehensive website with historical data. For those interested in learning more or connecting with the association, their website offers a wealth of information and resources. Just Google them. The unit's post-war legacy isn't just about preserving memory, it's about honoring service that often went unseen. Huey pilots didn't always get the attention that jet fighter aces or infantry commanders did, but they were lifelines in the sky. When the roads were mined and the paddies too deep, the Knights of the Air were how you got in, and how you got out. They were part of what made the Vietnam War the first truly helicopter-driven conflict. And for those who served in the 114th, including Popi, the work wasn't glamorous, but it mattered. It meant getting the job done, bringing people home, and surviving to write another letter. The photo I chose for today depicts commanding officers for the U.S. and ARVN speaking with one another, looking at some papers set on a Jeep. The Jeep was one of the most convenient and readily available ways to get around on the ground, at least on bases and other places which were safer. They were introduced in World War II and are still used today. They are, at least, reliable cars. If only Meemaw had one. May. Dearest Suzie, these last 3 days have sure been long ones for me. We haven't done a thing. Today is a holiday and everybody is supposed to be off, but we are all about to go crazy, so we are going to go out to the range this afternoon just to have something to do. I was hoping to get those shirts in the mail today, but they weren't ready last night. I'm going down and checking on them again tonight. Maybe I can get them off tomorrow to you. Yesterday, we made Charlie airborne qualified. We put a little parachute on him and jumped him from the airfield tower. He did very well. If my pictures turn out at the event, I will send them to you. I'll bet there were 200 people out there taking pictures of the jump. Things are real quiet down here right now. That is the way it is. Quiet for a while, and then all hell breaks loose. I wouldn't care if it stays quiet for the next 116 days, though. If you will notice, there is quite an increase in our check this month. That is because they didn't take out income tax. That makes my pay for the past month over $500, which isn't bad. That's counting our bond. Well, I will close for now. Sending you all my love. I will do my best to call you on the 6th. Hug the boys for me. All my love. Bill. Popi writes this letter on May 31st, 1965, during what he calls a string of long days, quiet, dull, and mostly uneventful. It's Memorial Day, and while everyone's technically off duty, the boredom seems to be wearing them down. The only thing to do is head for the range for something, anything to fill the time. He mentions the shirts he had made, hoping to get them in the mail, but they weren't ready. He'll check again. Maybe tomorrow. And it's in that small detail, waiting on a tailor, planning a shipment, worrying about postage, that we see a side of the war we don't talk about that much. The enormous, grinding machine that kept Vietnam supplied. By 1965, Vietnam had become one of the most logistically complex operations in American military history. Tens of thousands of troops, vehicles, rations, weapons, and even crates of Coca-Cola were shipped halfway around the world to feed, clothe, arm, and transport an ever-growing force. Every helicopter part, every can of condensed milk, every reel of film in Popi's camera had to come from somewhere, and get there on time. The mail was just one part of it, but it mattered deeply. Letters were a lifeline. Packages from home could lift a whole unit's mood, and something like a set of custom shirts, airmailed with a white knight stitched into the pocket, was more than just fabric. It was identity. It was family. It was proof that even in a war zone you could still send a piece of yourself home and hope something came back. For the soldiers on the ground, the supply chain could feel both miraculous and maddening. You might get a hot meal and new boots one day, then wait 2 weeks for basic maintenance parts or fresh socks. Helicopters broke down in the jungle, radios went quiet, and mosquito repellent became a rare luxury. For every soldier like Popi writing home about pay bumps and packages, there were teams of quartermasters, logisticians, and local workers moving heaven and earth to keep the system going, often operating in near-invisible roles. Ships departed from Oakland, San Francisco, and Norfolk, and arrived at ports like Cam Ranh Bay, where their cargo was unloaded, sorted, and moved by truck or helicopter to bases like Vinh Long. But in a country crisscrossed with rivers, landmines, and ambush points, nothing ever moved quickly. Getting anything from Saigon to the Delta could take days, sometimes weeks. Even mail, something so simple, so personal, was routed through a network of APO addresses, military sorters, and overloaded flights. There was no Amazon Prime. There wasn't even a guarantee. But when something did make it through, like a letter from Suzie, a school paper from Billy, or eventually these embroidered shirts, it was a small victory over distance. Logistics didn't keep the war going, it kept relationships alive. It was one of the only ways Popi could maintain his role as a father and husband, even while deployed. So, when he jokes about using airmail again, even though he swore he wouldn't, there's something tender beneath the line. He knows it's worth the extra postage to get home a little faster. The most important part of this letter, though, may be Popi's mention of Charlie becoming airborne qualified. When I was growing up, I was always told about Popi's, quote, flight-trained monkey. Between you and me, I honestly thought it was just something adults told kids about their grandfather to make him seem interesting. Almost like an urban legend. Or maybe it was something they really believed that didn't actually happen. The photo I chose for today depicts Charlie mid-parachute flight. It is blurry, but if you look closely, you can see the little guy midair. It wasn't until I got his slides and looked through them all carefully that I realized that Charlie was, in fact, parachute qualified. At least they put a small parachute on him and dropped him from a tower, and he fell safely to the ground. Once again, this is such a human thing for Popi to do. It is exactly what a 28-year-old man with a monkey and too much time on his hands should do. I'm Alex Lowy, and I hope you have enjoyed listening to this episode of Dearest Suzie, and receiving messages from the past that my Popi wrote exactly 60 years ago. I sincerely appreciate your time and interest. Please consider following the podcast on your preferred platform, and if you're enjoying it, I kindly ask that you take the time to rate the show and leave a review. Also, please follow the project on YouTube, X, and Instagram. All likes, comments, shares, and reviews will help grow the reach of this story. The links for these things should be in the description of this episode. Please feel free to email me at dearestsuziepodcast@gmail.com if you have anything you'd like to say. I'd love to chat or to hear about your stories as well. Thank you for listening, and God bless.